Welcome to my garden. Actually, welcome to my greenhouse. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I have to say, mine is getting better as it's finally time to start sowing some beautiful vegetables. It's the first week of March, and what should you start sowing? Well, actually, there's quite a lot of vegetables you can start sowing right now for indoor sowing, but also, if the weather allows it, straight away to the soil outside. For me, it will be only indoor sowing, starting off my seedlings. And today I'm gonna start off with leeks, celery, celeriac and peppers. I think it's the perfect time to start growing them. So let's start with the mix itself. I always buy fresh soil, fresh starting soil for my vegetables, okay? I don't tend to reuse the soil I've got in my garden, as that could introduce some diseases or parasites or anything else. So you definitely want to buy something fresh. However, when you're starting your seedlings, you actually don't need soil that's rich in minerals, as well, they don't really need it. I will use these trays, okay? So they're quite tiny. They're here just to start you off. As the plants grow and get the first two true leaves, then we'll transfer them over to larger pots, probably by 9 centimeters by 9 centimeters, depending on what type of vegetable you're going to be growing. And then you want to have a different mix that does have a bit of nutrition in it. However, for now, just basic soil will do. There is one thing I'm actually going to be adding to my soil, and that's perlite. Okay, you can use perlite or vermiculite. Both of them will work fine. And what these additions to the soil will do, they will make sure that there's constantly the right amount of moisture in the soil for the seeds to actually germinate correctly. Let's whack in some soil to my tray and do the mix. Now the soil itself, it needs to be light and fluffy like that, okay? You don't want to have a really moist soil, okay? Beaten up to chunks. It really needs to be light, and that will help in holding the correct amount of moisture for the seeds to germinate and grow healthy roots. Now it's time for the perlite. Healthy amount, just like so, and just mix it all up. Another thing I would suggest is, if you buy your soil from a gardening center and it was lying outside and it was cold, okay, take that soil to your house, leave it for a couple of days so it reaches a nice normal room temperature. You definitely don't want to start your seedlings in a really cold soil. Now, what type of trays do I actually use? Well, I'm trying to invest in those that are a little bit firmer. They're not so flimsy, and to be fair, they will last for a few years. Obviously, you're going to need a tray, and make sure that these do have holes for the water to be able to actually escape, okay? Now, these that I'm going to use for the peppers also have a cover. A germinating dome, like so, okay? I do have vents on the top, and also a place for some LED lights to help them grow, especially nowadays where there isn't enough sunshine, okay? Now I'm just gonna fill up my tray with the soil. There you go, just like that. And now what you need to do is to make really tiny holes. You don't want to bury your seeds too deep, as the germination will take a bit longer, and sometimes if you put your seeds too deep, well, they may not germinate at all. As you can see, I've got a wide variety of different types of peppers. What I would also suggest is choosing varieties that will have their fruit at different times of the year. So you're going to have some early peppers, some middle of season, and at the end of the season as well. That will mean you'll have your peppers all season round. Another important thing to do is actually tag your vegetables so you know what's growing where exactly. Another question you may have is, how many seeds should you put in each square? Well, to be fair, I always do between 2 to 3 seeds per square. That will mean I'm almost 90% certain I will have germination from every single cell, as you know, not every single seed will actually germinate. If, for example, all the seeds germinate in a slot, then I'm just gonna take out the plant that doesn't look too strong. Basically, you choose the strongest one out of the lot. And now what you need to do is just to cover up the seeds ever so slightly. And I'm just gonna follow the process with the rest of my peppers. Last year was my first season with a greenhouse, and I have to say I never had so many tomatoes in my life. And I have to say I didn't have much luck with eggplants, however peppers grew really nicely. I also had some watermelons, but that didn't go too well either, and it was, I think, too congested. So this season I'm only gonna have mainly tomatoes in my greenhouse and few plants of peppers, just to see how it goes. But usually I keep all my peppers outside in the raised beds, and I have to say the harvest is usually absolutely beautiful. But if you stick with my channel, you'll see that exactly. Alright, and now what I like to do is to add a layer of perlite on top, just to make sure I'm gonna have the correct amount of moisture for my seeds. And now the most important thing is to add water to our seeds. Now don't go over the top with a very harsh stream of water, as there is potential for the seeds to actually move about and go places you don't want them to be. Therefore, I do recommend a pressure sprayer like this. Okay, it creates a nice soft mist that will make sure the seeds will not move and they will get the correct amount of moisture. And there you have it, the first tray with some peppers is now ready. And in the same way I'm gonna do one more tray with peppers, exactly the same way, similar size of a tray. If all these plants germinate, I'm gonna have 40 seedlings of peppers. However, you need to remember that not all of them will germinate, and there's always a percentage that, well, the seedlings won't be as great. So it's always best to have a little bit more than not enough. And now it's time for the celery and celeriac. And to be absolutely honest with you, this is the last moment to start sowing them, as they really grow very, very slowly. The germination time could be sometimes up to 3 weeks, and yeah, they just grow super slow. So now it's the time to have them started, to start off the seedlings. And I had beautiful harvest from last season. To be fair, I think that I've got still 3 or 4 left in my raised beds. Even with frost getting right down to -14 degrees Celsius, they still managed to survive, which yeah, that was a bit of a surprise to me. I know leeks are quite resilient to harsh cold weather. I think I've got 1 or 2 left of them as well from last season. So yeah, it just proves that some vegetables, you know, they open window as they grow. You don't have to be afraid of winter and just leave them in the raised beds. You can help them out if you cover them with some sort of a gardener's fabric, just to keep the really low temperatures away from them. But yeah, even without those, in my raised beds, they managed to actually survive. But yeah, the key is to start them pretty early in the season, otherwise it just may not have enough time for them to grow fully. And the process is exactly the same as with peppers. Don't forget about the tags, so you know exactly what's growing where. But also, you may try another method of growing your vegetables. So last season I had too many pumpkins and butternut squash, and actually I've bought some large 28-litre pots, and I was growing them very successfully in those pots. And you can place them anywhere, okay, as long as there's a bit of sunshine. And you need to make sure with pots that you do water them every so often, okay. You need to pay attention to the water, to the moisture content in those pots, as they do go dry quite quickly. And with these as well, I'm probably going to be watering them every day until germination. And then what I'm going to do instead of watering on top, I'm actually going to be putting water inside of these trays. Leave it for about 20 minutes for the soil to actually soak up the moisture, and then any excess left I'll remove from the tray. I found that to be the easiest and the quickest way to actually do this. Now with celery, the seeds are absolutely tiny, so I'm probably going to have more than 3 in each cell, probably about 5 or 6 actually. So thinning them down later on when they germinate is actually very important. And I do have different varieties of the celeriac as well. So this one is early. I also got one that's middle of season, and I've got one that's late season that will actually be the perfect choice for keeping over winter in the raised beds. Now, for example, with celery and peppers, I'm going to take these trays right to my house to keep them in warmth. I do have a large window, so they will get plenty of sunshine, but also I will use some light when they finally germinate. Now, some vegetables, when I actually germinate them, when I will have the seedlings, I'm going to move them to this unheated greenhouse. So for example, onions or leeks, they are absolutely fine with low temperatures, and to be fair, they're quite resilient as well. As you can see, it's a fairly simple process. Now, you don't have to use trays like these. You can just use any containers you may have to your disposal after ice cream, so some cups or anything else really after yogurt, right? Just need to make sure that they do have holes in the bottom for the excess water to escape, as you definitely don't want to have too much moisture, as it will create an environment good for, well, the wrong kind of growth like fungus or anything else. Okay, so if you do use anything like that, make sure they do have holes in them, and obviously a tray underneath to catch that excess water. And again, a dash of perlite on top, and most importantly, water. And there you have it. My peppers are sorted, celeriac and celery, leaf celery as well. All that is now done. I still got one more tray like this for my leeks. However, the process is exactly the same, okay? The only difference is, as these germinate, they will actually stay in my house. When I have the seedling grown up a little bit with 2 correct leaves, I'm going to transfer them to larger pots, and they will still stay in my house until it's time to actually move them outside to my raised beds. But that's probably going to be at, well, middle of May, maybe the 3rd quarter of May. However, with leeks, as soon as they germinate, I'm going to move them to the unheated greenhouse, and they will be absolutely fine over here, and they won't take the precious space in my house that I will need for some more vegetables. For example, my favorite, tomatoes. Right, for today, that's all. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and my Facebook page as well. I'm going to leave some links down below in the description of this video, as I'm able to add updates more often there, so you'll see when these will germinate. As today is the 4th of March. I'm thinking the celery probably about 2 weeks, similar with the peppers. But hey, follow me there to follow along with the process of my small vegetable garden. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Take care.